One-shots are standalone stories or a tool that are used to develop narratives into a longer series. They're the most digestible content within the manga world because there's no long-term dedication and you get to experience such unique stories. I often challenge myself to read unknown series, and I recently found a tool that randomly generates a series for me. There are plenty of popular one-shots like Goku Rakugai and Look Back, but I enjoy finding those little hidden gems within the manga archives. So here are 10 one-shots that I found using a random one-shot generator, which I've also left in the description below if you want to go check it out yourself. Lunchtime Accomplice, a 46-page high school slice-of-life romance of two high school students, Onoda and Yukino, who bond over eating habits which would otherwise be negatively pointed out by their classmates. I found myself emotionally relating to Yuniko, especially when it came to my life in secondary school, having to hold off eating too much around my friends just in case they started to think that I was weird or greedy. Because I do love my food. When it came to the art, the cover art and panels were a mixture of the many flavors of Kumika and Hello World, so it's a very soft palette while still being quite expressive. I'd recommend it. 7 out of 10. Next up is Client, with a total of 27 pages. An office worker is stressed from his marketing job, and when he eventually returns home, a ghost is attempting to kill him in his sleep. It was an interesting concept of understanding someone's intent to make important decisions and the idea of thinking before you speak. I did notice that the artist did a similar thing to Junji Ito. When there's a strong emotional scene, the artist makes the main subject within the panel the most rich with detail, while leaving everything else in the panel quite plain to allow some self-insertion. That and some of the panels were pretty spooky like Junji Ito's work. But overall, Client didn't blow me away by any means, but it was still an interesting lens for covering indecisiveness as a topic. I'd give this a medium 6 out of 10. Number 3, we have Swimsuit World, a world in which everyone wears swimsuits for their everyday attire. I thought I left unnecessary ecchi behind after reading Suguri-chan Expedition Party, but clearly I was wrong. I would go out of my way and say even the romance element, quote unquote, was a poorer execution than Suguri-chan too. I really wouldn't recommend this. And I'd give it a 3.5 out of 10. Up next, we have Tadashi Hitsuji, a 10-page one-shot that immediately reminded me of the Records of Ragnarok art style. Adolf, who thankfully isn't the Adolf that we're all thinking, makes a deal with the devil, and this follows his journey into fulfilling his end of the bargain. Despite this having a short lifespan, it had a gripping plot from start to finish, with a few interesting twists sprinkled in. I would, unlike Swimsuit World, highly recommend this. I give it an 8 out of 10. Next on our list of one-shots is Tasogare Schrodinger. This was on the longer side of the one-shots with a total of 57 pages. The premise is, imagine you and your best friend are hanging out. Now picture that one of you are able to fly, but only when you're touching the hands with your best friend. This was a pretty interesting take on the traditional superpower storytelling that you see in other mangas. The plot was relatively easy to predict though, but I won't spoil it if you're interested in reading it. I would say when it came to the art, everything was pretty consistent, except for the main villain. She looked and acted as if she came out of Monster Wrestling Interspecies Combat Girls, which I was happy with. I quite like that manga, but it was a little off-putting in comparison to the art for the rest of it. Also, I have no idea why it's called Schrodinger. There was not a single cat in sight. But with that, I'd give it a 6 out of 10. The Voice of a Mermaid, which stands at a total of 25 pages. It follows the protagonist of Ranju, who decides to raise a pet mermaid, Ruri, and makes it her mission to find Ruri the perfect set of vocal cords. I'm always fascinated when authors put their own twist on pre-existing mythology and folk tales. It was one of the main reasons I was drawn to Hunter's Guild Red Hood. Yes, there have been depictions of Red Riding Hood in other mediums, such as movies and books and just general fan art, but none had her as a magical buff goddess blasting werewolves away with a gigantic shotgun. Going back to The Voice of a Mermaid, I felt like it was a great execution of explaining the world and fleshing out the relationship dynamic while being contained within a limited page number. It really pulls us deep into the world, explaining how mermaids are almost seen as minor pets that you have to keep in water and feed occasionally, but consuming its flesh or blood makes you immortal. To summarise, it's a romantic fantasy one-shot with a sprinkling of grounded gore, so I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Until I Melt You by Momoi Ito. a 40-page one-shot focusing on romance and ice skating. As a big, if not huge fan of Yuri on Ice, I was very excited going into this, and it's fair to say it didn't disappoint. It follows Rei and Toya, who are absolutely forbidden to display any affection to each other unless they're on the ice. Toya really reminded me of the main protagonist Yuri, with his emotional expressions and passion for the town ice rink, whereas Rei reminded me much of the antagonist Yuri, with a hard-working, stern attitude, but always somehow one-upping the other Yuri whenever they get the chance. When it came to this one-shot, I did wish they would have fleshed out some of the performances a little bit more, but it was a beautiful story, both narratively and visually, nonetheless. So I'd highly recommend this and give this a solid 8.5 ice skates out of 10. Standing at number 8 is Alice Everlasting. This 10-page manga started really sweet and wholesome, and as I read it, I believed it would follow a similar story to Succubus and Thereafter, which is a fantastic one-shot, but unfortunately, I was mistaken. The romance element of this one-shot kind of dived at the end, and the words said by Alice did make me question her true intentions, but I wasn't too sure if that was the writer's intent or I just misread the situation. That being said, the artist did do an excellent job of giving each character such captivating eyes. Personally, detailed eyes really keep me engaged throughout a story. Taking into consideration the art and the slightly sadistic story, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. The 9th manga I read in this list is Falling in Love with Your Love Song, a 31-page manga following a couple of high school students, one being an undercover idol while the other is a huge fan of that idol. If I had to compare this to any other medium, then I guess it would be the historic art form that is Hannah Montana. In the sense that Sho, the male protagonist, is living a double life of a high school student and an idol. The love build-up from Sho was a bit rapid, but I understand the author being confined to a one-shot format. However, I did find the art to be very reminiscent of the early pages of Cardcaptor Sakura. With that in mind, I'd give it an unoffensive 7 out of 10. Last but certainly not least is a 36-page manga called Cinderella Lesson. This story follows Yuki, a hard-working school committee student, and Seiji, an inspiring fashion designer. Unlike Schrodinger, this one-shot's title actually has a link to the story, both with an iconic transformation that you would see in Cinderella, and occasional violent outbreaks from other girls who prevent the main protagonist from having her princess moment. I found there was a level of common relatability with Yuki, as I'm someone who's happy to wear comfortable clothing and not really be super extravagant unless it's a special occasion. Like, I don't see the need to put on the latest makeup or get super extravagant just to go to Tesco's. When it came to the plot, I did feel that Reiji didn't give Yuki a choice in her transformation, and he was really thinking fashion first. So maybe I would have preferred just a little bit more consideration for Yuki's comforts within the fashion world. Kind of like in Say Yes to the Dress, where stylists think both about how the bride looks and feels. So would I recommend this? I guess so, but it's a low priority recommendation, so 6.5 out of 10. Those have been my 10 random one-shots that I've read from a random one-shot generator. I hope you found some interesting recommendations or just enjoyed the obscurity that comes along with one-shots. This has been my first video since hitting 100 subscribers, so I just want to say thanks to everyone who's ever liked, commented, viewed, or shared my videos. I made this hobby channel last year, and I'm elated to see that people are still enjoying the silly little content I make, so I hope to share more in the future. Thanks again, and bye!